Admiral Jake Murphy stared at the screen in his command center on Luna Station. The massive alien ships floated just beyond Pluto like dark metal mountains in space. 12 of them, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were black with sharp edges that seemed to cut through the darkness of space itself. How long have they been there? Murphy asked his communications officer. 6 hours, sir. They appeared all at once, like they just jumped out of nowhere, Lieutenant Sarah Davis replied. Her voice was steady, but Murphy could hear the worry underneath. Murphy rubbed his jaw. He was 53 years old and had spent 30 years in space. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on Mars. But he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were so big they made Earth's largest battleship look like a toy. Any word from Earth? He asked. President Wilson is calling an emergency meeting. All fleet commanders are to report in 1 hour, Davis said. Dr. Lisa Grant walked into the command center. She was the smartest person Murphy knew when it came to alien life. She had been studying radio signals from deep space for 20 years, always hoping to find proof that humans were not alone. Now she had her proof, and it was not what she had hoped for. I've been listening to their transmissions, Grant said. They're speaking to us. What are they saying? Murphy asked. Grant looked at her tablet. They call themselves the Korthak Empire. They say humans must stop all expansion beyond our current colonies. We must surrender our space fleet and accept their rule. If we refuse, they will destroy our worlds one by one. Murphy felt his stomach drop. How long do we have to decide? They didn't give us a time limit. They just keep repeating the same message over and over, Grant said. But, Admiral, there's something else. The way they speak suggests they expect us to give up quickly. They sound like they've done this before. Captain Ben Torres entered the room. He commanded the U.S. Defiance, humanity's newest and strongest warship. Torres was younger than Murphy, only 42, but he was the best ship captain in the fleet. Admiral, my ship is ready to move, Torres said. Just give me the order. Murphy looked at him. Ben, those ships could destroy your vessel with one shot. Maybe, but we need to know what we're dealing with. Let me take a closer look, Torres said. On the main screen, the alien ships continued their slow drift near Pluto. They had positioned themselves where every telescope on Earth could see them. The message was clear. We are here, we are powerful, and you should be afraid. Ambassador Kate Phillips joined them via video link from Earth. She was the government's top diplomat, a woman who had negotiated peace between the Mars colonies and Earth after years of fighting. The president wants to try talking to them. Phillips said, I'm prepared to open diplomatic channels. Good luck with that, Grant said. I've been analyzing their language patterns. These aliens don't seem interested in negotiation. Their entire message structure suggests they see this as a demand, not an offer to talk. Murphy watched the alien fleet on his screen. Something bothered him about their formation. They were spread out in a perfect line, like they were on parade. It looked impressive, but it wasn't a fighting formation. Any military officer would know that ships spread out like that were vulnerable to attack from multiple directions. They're trying to scare us, Murphy said quietly. It's working, Torres admitted. Those ships could glass our entire planet. No, you don't understand, Murphy said, his mind working faster now. Look at how they're positioned. They're not ready for battle. They're posing. This whole thing is a show. Grant nodded slowly. That fits with their communication style. They're expecting us to surrender without a fight. They probably do this to every new species they encounter. Murphy's communication board lit up. Reports were coming in from across human space. The colonies on Mars, Europa, and the 12 other worlds humans had settled were all asking for orders. Should they evacuate? Should they prepare for attack? Should they surrender? Patch me through to all colonies, Murphy ordered. The screen changed to show 12 different colony commanders. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. All of them were waiting for leadership. This is Admiral Murphy. You've all seen the alien ships. You've heard their demands. I want you to know that Earth is not planning to surrender, Murphy said. There was silence for a moment. Then Colonel Steve Walsh, the military commander of the Titan colony, spoke up. What are your orders, Admiral? Murphy looked around the room at Grant, Torres, and Phillips. He thought about the alien ships and their parade formation. He thought about their repeated demands and their assumption that humans would give up without a fight. Begin defensive preparations, Murphy said. All colonies are to implement Protocol 7. All fleet units are to report ready status. And I want every ship captain to review their tactical manuals. Sir, Torres said, Protocol 7 is for total war preparation. That's right, Murphy said. These aliens think they can scare us into giving up everything we've built. They think humans are just another weak species that will roll over when threatened. He looked back at the screen, showing the alien fleet. They're about to learn they made a big mistake. The colony commanders on the screen were nodding now. The fear in their eyes was being replaced by something else. Determination. Anger. The same feeling that had driven humans to explore space in the first place. One more thing, Murphy added. Send a message back to the Korthak Empire. Tell them that humanity appreciates their offer, but we decline. If they want our worlds, they're welcome to try and take them. Grant smiled. That should get their attention. Good, Murphy said, because it's time they learn what humans do when someone tries to push us around. The alien ships continued their drift near Pluto, waiting for humanity's surrender. They had no idea that instead of fear, their arrival had awakened something much more dangerous. Human stubbornness. Admiral Zekmore paced in his command chamber aboard the flagship Terror Worlds. His 6 legs clicked against the metal floor as he moved back and forth. The human response had been transmitted to his ship 3 hours ago, and he still could not believe what he had heard. They had refused. Actually refused. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever said no to the Korthak Empire's demands. Commander Veltar, explain this to me again, Zekmore said to the second-in-command. Veltar's 4 eyes blinked nervously. The humans sent a message saying they decline our generous offer. They also said if we want their worlds, we should try to take them. Try to take them? Zekmore's voice rose. We have 12 battlecruisers. Each one can destroy a planet. What do these humans have? Our intelligence shows they have 47 ships total. Most are small exploration vessels. Their largest ship is 1/10 the size of our smallest cruiser, Veltar reported. Zekmore stopped pacing. Something was wrong. Every species the Empire had encountered before had surrendered immediately upon seeing the third battle fleet. The sight of 12 massive warships was supposed to end all resistance. It had worked on 47 different worlds. Back on Luna Station, General Rick Hayes stood in a room deep underground. The room was filled with computer screens and communication equipment that most people didn't know existed. Hayes was in charge of Terra Defense Systems, a project that had been secret for over 50 years. Show me the current status, Hayes said to his aide, Lieutenant Mark Johnson. The main screen lit up with a map of the solar system. Hundreds of small dots appeared throughout the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Each dot represented something the aliens didn't know about. All mining platforms are operational, Johnson reported. The Korthak ships are still holding position near Pluto. They haven't moved closer. Hayes smiled. The aliens thought the asteroid belt was just rocks floating in space. They had no idea that humans had been working there for decades. Every major asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into a weapons platform. Mining ships that looked harmless from the outside carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Contact Commander Amy Chun. Tell her it's time to wake up the belt, Hayes ordered. 3 billion miles away. Commander Chun received a message aboard her ship Asteroid Miner 7. At least, that's what the ship's registration said. In reality, it was one of the most advanced warships humans had ever built, disguised to look like an ordinary mining vessel. You heard the General, Chin told her crew. Power up all systems. Send the activation codes to all platforms. Throughout the asteroid belt, mining operations that had been running for decades suddenly changed. Laser mining equipment that was designed to cut through rock could also cut through starship hulls. Cargo ships that hauled or were actually carrying missiles. Processing stations that refined metals were manufacturing weapons. On Luna, Dr. Paul Martinez was showing Admiral Murphy something that made the Admiral's eyes go wide. They stood in a massive underground chamber that stretched for miles. Thousands of small spacecraft filled the space, each one no bigger than a fighter jet. "How many?" Murphy asked. 12,000 built. "Another 1,000 rolling off the production line every day," Martinez said. "We call them Wasps. They're fast, hard to hit, and they swarm." Murphy walked between the rows of ships. Each Wasp was designed for one purpose: get close to an enemy ship and cause as much damage as possible. They weren't meant to survive long battles. They were meant to overwhelm larger ships with pure numbers. "The aliens have big guns," Martinez explained. "But big guns are slow. They're designed to hit other big ships or space stations. These little fighters will be like trying to swat flies with a hammer." Captain Torres was closer to the alien fleet than any other human. His ship, the Defiance, was conducting what the official reports called a routine patrol. In reality, Torres was gathering intelligence on the enemy. "What do you see, Sarah?" Torres asked his sensor operator, Lieutenant Sarah Brown. "The alien ships are huge, Captain, but they're not built for fighting other ships. Look at their weapon placements." Torres studied the sensor data. The alien ships had massive guns, but they were all pointed forward or in fixed positions. They were designed to bombard planets, not fight mobile targets. They're siege weapons, Torres realized, built to scare civilians and destroy cities. They're not expecting a real fight. Back aboard the Terror of Worlds, Zekmore was becoming more frustrated by the hour. His intelligence officers brought him reports that made no sense. "The humans are not evacuating their colonies," one officer reported. "Instead, they appear to be fortifying them." "Their ships are not retreating to defensive positions," another added. "They're spreading out across their territory." "And Admiral," a third officer said nervously, "we're detecting increased activity in their asteroid mining region. Much more activity than normal." Zekmore's tail lashed in anger. They should be terrified. They should be begging for mercy. What kind of species responds to overwhelming force by preparing to fight? None of his officers had an answer. In all their record of conquest, no species had ever acted like this. On Earth, President Ellen Wilson was addressing the planet in an emergency broadcast. "My fellow humans," she began, "we face a threat from beyond our world. An alien empire has demanded our surrender. They believe their big ships and loud voices will make us bow down." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "They're wrong. We didn't explore space to give up at the first sign of trouble. We didn't build colonies to abandon them when bullies arrive. We are human beings, and we don't surrender." Across human space, the response was immediate. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Factories that made civilian goods switched to military production. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects began designing weapons. Admiral Zekmore received one final intelligence report that made his blood run cold. Human communications were not filled with panic or surrender discussions. Instead, they were talking about casualty estimates, supply lines, and victory conditions. These humans weren't planning to surrender. They weren't even planning to defend. They were planning to win. For the first time in his long military career, Zekmore began to wonder if the Third Battle Fleet had made a terrible mistake. The message went out on every frequency humans could broadcast. From Earth to the farthest colony, from military channels to civilian radio, the same words reached every corner of human space and beyond. "This is Admiral Jake Murphy, speaking for all of humanity. To the Korthak Empire and any other species listening. You have 72 hours to leave human territory. Any ship that remains after that time will be considered hostile. We suggest you use this time wisely." The message was broadcast so widely that alien civilizations across the galaxy picked it up. For the first time in centuries, someone was giving the mighty Korthak Empire an ultimatum instead of receiving one. Colonel Steve Walsh stood in the briefing room aboard the stealth ship Ghost. The ship was humanity's most advanced vessel, invisible to most sensors and faster than anything else in space. Captain Maria Santos commanded the ship, and she was the best pilot in the fleet. "The mission is simple," Walsh told his team. "We get close to their fleet, plant these devices, and get out without being seen." He held up a small metal sphere no bigger than a baseball. Dr. Nina Roberts had designed it in her quantum physics lab. She called it resonance mine, but Walsh just called it ship killer. "How do these things work?" asked Sergeant Tim Brown, Walsh's demolitions expert. Dr. Roberts stepped forward. She was young for such an important scientist, only 32, but she was brilliant. Every ship has a shield frequency. These mines learn that frequency and then disrupt it. When the shields fail, the ship becomes vulnerable to any weapon. "How many do we have?" Captain Santos asked. 200, Roberts replied. "That should be enough to take down their shields when the time comes." The Ghost slipped through space like a shadow. Santos guided the ship through the outer system's ice and debris, using the natural cover to hide their approach. The alien fleet was still holding position near Pluto, their massive ships arranged in that same parade formation. "They're not even trying to hide," Santos whispered as they got closer. "Look at them. They're just sitting there like they own the place." Walsh studied the alien formation through the ship's sensors. "They probably do this everywhere they go. Show up, look scary, wait for surrender. They've never had to actually fight." The Ghost moved between the alien ships like a fish swimming between whales. The enemy vessels were so large that the small human ship could hide in their shadows. One by one, Walsh's team deployed the resonance mines. The devices attached themselves to the alien hulls, and then went completely silent, waiting for the right moment to activate. Meanwhile, Director Tom Lewis was coordinating with human colonies across space. His job was to make sure every human world was ready for what was coming. The reports he received would have surprised the aliens. "Mars colony reports ready," his assistant, Lieutenant Jane Miller, announced. "They've activated the planetary defense grid." "What about the outer colonies?" Lewis asked. New Texas, New California, and Armstrong Colony all report the same thing. Instead of evacuating, they're implementing scorched earth protocols. If the aliens want our worlds, they'll get burned rocks. Lewis nodded grimly. The colonists had made their choice. They would rather destroy their own homes than let aliens take them. It was a very human way of thinking. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Roberts was making final adjustments to humanity's secret weapon. She called it adaptive shield technology, and it was about to change everything. "The beauty of it is simplicity," she explained to her team. "Most alien races develop one type of weapon and stick with it for centuries. Their shields are designed to stop their own weapons, not adapt to new ones." Her assistant, Dr. Frank Wilson, looked worried. "But what if their weapons are too powerful? What if our shields can't adapt fast enough?" Robert smiled. "That's where human engineering comes in. We don't just make our shields adapt. We make them learn and share information. Every hit makes every human ship stronger." The test results were better than expected. When they fired captured alien weapon signatures at the adaptive shields, the barriers not only held, but actually grew stronger with each shot. Across the solar system, Captain Ben Torres was leading a different kind of mission. His ship, the Defiance, was accompanied by 12 other vessels on what looked like a routine patrol. In reality, they were positioning themselves for the coming battle. "Remember," Torres told his fellow captains over the radio, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive long enough for the real plan to work." The other captains understood. Human ships were smaller and less powerful than the alien vessels, but they were also faster and more maneuverable. The plan was to use those advantages. Fleet Admiral Sam Johnson was coordinating the entire operation from his command ship, the Constitution. He had been planning for this moment for 20 years, ever since humans first detected alien signals in deep space. "All units report ready status," he announced over the fleet communication system. The reports came in from across human space. The asteroid belt weapons platforms were online. The hidden fighter squadrons were ready to launch. The colonial defense grids were powered up. Even the civilian ships had been armed with whatever weapons they could carry. Ambassador Kate Phillips made one last attempt at peaceful contact with the alien fleet. Her message was transmitted directly to the Korthak flagship. "Admiral Zekmore, this is Ambassador Phillips representing humanity. We offer you safe passage out of our territory." Leave now, and there will be no conflict. Stay, and you will discover why humans have survived every challenge we've ever faced. The response came back within minutes. Zekmor's voice was filled with anger and disbelief. You dare threaten the Korthak Empire? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed entire civilizations. What makes you think your primitive species can stand against us? Phillips looked at the timer on her communication panel. 68 hours remaining. Admiral Zekmor, she replied calmly. You're about to find out exactly what makes us different. We suggest you use your remaining time to reconsider. The communication ended. Across human space, final preparations were being made. The aliens had come expecting to find a weak species that would surrender at the first sign of force. Instead, they had found something much more dangerous. They had found humans who were angry. The 72-hour countdown continued, and with each passing hour, humanity's hidden strength grew more apparent. The Korthak Empire was about to learn that bringing warships to scare humans was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The timer reached zero at exactly 0800 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Zekmor had ignored the human ultimatum completely. He was convinced that his 12 massive warships could crush any resistance these primitive creatures might offer. Target their moon base. Zekmor ordered his weapons officer. One shot should be enough to make them surrender. The massive energy cannon on the Terror worlds charged up with a sound like thunder. The weapon was designed to crack planets in half. Luna Station would be vaporized in seconds. The energy beam lanced across space, bright enough to be seen from Earth with the naked eye. It struck Luna Station's shields and exploded in a brilliant flash of light. When the light faded, the base was still there. Impossible, Zekmor whispered. Nothing can survive a direct hit from our planet killer. His sensor officer was staring at his instruments in shock. Admiral, their shields absorbed the entire blast. The energy readings are off our charts. What Zekmor didn't know was that Dr. Nina Roberts' adaptive shield technology had been analyzing Korthak weapons for days. The shields didn't just block the attack. They learned from it and became stronger. On Luna Station, Admiral Murphy smiled as he watched his displays. Well, that got their attention. All units, execute Protocol Omega. Across the solar system, humanity's true response began. In the asteroid belt, Commander Amy Chun pressed a single button. Instantly, thousands of hidden weapons platforms came alive. Asteroids that looked like ordinary rocks for decades suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive railguns emerged from concealed ports. Missile launchers unfolded like deadly flowers. Fire everything, Chen ordered. The asteroid belt erupted in light as thousands of projectiles accelerated toward the alien fleet. Chunks of metal and rock, some as big as buildings, began racing through space at incredible speeds. Each one carried enough kinetic energy to punch through a battleship's hull. Captain Lee Kim led the first wave of fighters from a hidden base on Titan. His squadron of 50 Wasp fighters was just the beginning. From bases scattered throughout the outer system, thousands more small craft began launching. They moved in coordinated swarms, too fast and numerous for the alien targeting systems to track. Remember, we're gnats attacking elephants, Kim told his pilots. But enough gnat bites can bring down anything. The wasps swarmed around the alien fleet like angry insects. Their small laser cannons couldn't penetrate the heavy armor of the Korthak ships, but they could damage sensors, weapon mounts, and communication arrays. Death by 1,000 cuts. Engineer Ray Cooper watched from the control center as automated factories across human space kicked into high gear. The production systems he had designed were working perfectly. Every few minutes, new fighters rolled off assembly lines and launched into space. Current production rate? Cooper asked his supervisor. 120 new fighters per hour across all facilities, came the response. We can maintain this rate for weeks if necessary. The aliens were fighting a war of attrition against an enemy that could replace losses faster than they could inflict them. Admiral Zekmor watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet came under attack from every direction. The human asteroids were still 20 minutes away, but his ships were already taking damage from the swarming fighters. How many small craft are attacking us? He demanded. Over 3,000 and climbing, Admiral. New ones keep appearing from hidden bases. Destroy them. The Korthak ships opened fire with their massive weapons, but it was like trying to swat flies with sledgehammers. The big guns were too slow to track the tiny, fast-moving human fighters. For every wasp they destroyed, 10 more appeared to take its place. Then the resonance mines activated. Colonel Steve Walsh had planted 200 of the devices throughout the alien formation. Now they all triggered at once. The Korthak shields, which had protected their ships for centuries, suddenly flickered and died. Shields down across the entire fleet. The alien sensor officer screamed. At that moment, the first wave of asteroid projectiles arrived. Without their shields, the massive alien ships were vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Chunks of rock moving at tremendous speed punched through armor like bullets through paper. The terror world shuddered as a piece of metal the size of a car tore through its hull. Emergency alarms blared throughout the ship as atmosphere began venting into space. Fleet Admiral Sam Johnson coordinated the human attack from his flagship. Years of planning were paying off. The aliens had expected to fight ships like their own. Instead, they faced an entirely different kind of warfare. Phase 2, execute, Johnson ordered. Captain Ben Torres led the main human fleet in a direct assault on the damaged alien ships. The Defiance and her sister ships were still smaller than their enemies, but now the odds were more even. Without shields, the alien vessels could be hurt. Target their weapon systems, Torres ordered. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to make them helpless. Human missiles and energy beams focused on the alien gun mounts. One by one, the massive weapons that had terrorized 100 worlds fell silent. Ambassador Zara Thompson opened a communication channel to the alien flagship. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke to Admiral Zekmore. Admiral, this is your final opportunity to withdraw. You have lost your shields and most of your weapons. Your ships are taking heavy damage. Leave now and we will allow you to go in peace. Zekmore looked around his ruined command center. Half his fleet was disabled. The other half was under constant attack from weapons that seemed to come from everywhere at once. His mighty warships, designed to intimidate entire worlds, were being torn apart by creatures he had dismissed as primitives. How? He asked over the communication channel. How did you do this? Thompson's response was simple. You came here expecting us to be afraid. But humans aren't afraid of bullies. We fight them. Another asteroid impact shook the terror worlds. Zekmore realized that his ship might not survive much longer. Around him, his crew was working frantically to control the damage, but it was a losing battle. All ships retreat, Zekmore ordered. Full withdrawal to the jump point. The surviving Korthak vessels began limping away from the battle. Their retreat was covered by the remaining fighters, but even those were being overwhelmed by the endless swarms of human craft. As the alien fleet fled toward deep space, Admiral Murphy opened a communication channel that would be heard across the galaxy. This is Admiral Murphy of the Terran Defense Force. Any species considering aggressive action against humanity should remember what happened here today. We are peaceful, but we are not helpless. We prefer diplomacy, but we are prepared for war. Choose your approach wisely. The Battle of Sol was over. The mighty Korthak Empire had been defeated by a species they considered primitive. As news of the victory spread across human space, celebrations began on every world and station. But the real victory was not military. It was a message that humanity had sent to the galaxy. They were no longer just another young species to be bullied and conquered. They had become something much more dangerous. They had become the defenders of the weak and the nightmare of tyrants everywhere. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, President Ellen Davis stood before the largest gathering of alien representatives in galactic history. The meeting was being held on the neutral station of Harmony Point, built specifically for this purpose in the space between human and alien territories. We gather today not as conquerors or conquered, but as neighbors in a vast galaxy, Davis began her speech. The recent conflict with the Korthak Empire has shown us all that the old ways of doing things must change. In the audience, representatives from 47 different species listened carefully. Many of them had been under Korthak rule for centuries. Others had lived in fear of eventual conquest. All of them had watched in amazement as humanity had defeated the Empire's third battle fleet. Admiral Zekmor sat in the section reserved for Korthak representatives. His once proud uniform was now marked with defeat. Half his fleet had been destroyed or captured. The other half had limped back to Empire space, carrying news that would change everything. The Empire made a mistake, Davis continued. They assumed that force was the only language anyone understood. They were wrong. Today, we offer a different path. General Max Reed, the new director of interstellar defense, presented humanity's proposal. The Terran Defense Alliance would offer protection to any species that requested it. Human fleets would patrol trade routes and defend smaller civilizations from aggressive neighbors. We're not asking anyone to join our government or follow our laws, Reed explained. We're offering friendship and protection to those who want it. The response was immediate. Representatives from 12 species stepped forward to request alliance membership. These were worlds that had been conquered by the Korthak Empire decades ago, but had never stopped hoping for freedom. Dr. Carol White, Earth's new head of alien relations, worked with each delegation to establish formal treaties. She had studied alien culture for years and understood that each species needed different types of agreements. The Zilani people request protection for their farming worlds, she announced. The Hearth want help defending their trade ships. The Vexes are asking for military advisors to train their own defense forces. Each request was approved. Within hours, human ships were being dispatched to protect species that had been helpless for generations. Captain Dan Miller commanded the first deep space exploration fleet to leave human territory since the battle. His mission was to map the regions beyond Empire space and make contact with species that had never been conquered. It's a big galaxy, Miller told his crew as they prepared to jump to their first destination. There are probably thousands of species out there who have never heard of humans or the Empire. We're going to change that. The exploration fleet consisted of 20 ships designed for long-range missions. Each one carried diplomats, scientists, and enough firepower to defend themselves if necessary. But their primary mission was peaceful contact. Back on Earth, the effects of victory were being felt in every aspect of human society. The factories that had produced weapons during the war were now building exploration ships and defensive platforms. The asteroid belt mining operations were expanding to provide materials for the growing fleet. Engineer Ray Cooper was overseeing construction of massive shipyards in orbit around Jupiter. These facilities would be capable of building the largest ships humanity had ever designed. Not weapons of conquest, but ships of exploration and protection. How many can we build per year? Cooper asked his construction chief. At full capacity, we can launch 50 major vessels annually, came the reply. Exploration ships, hospital ships, colony transports, defense platforms, whatever we need. The news from across the galaxy was encouraging. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were declaring independence from the Korthak Empire. Human ships were helping them establish their own governments and defense forces. On the Korthak homeworld, Emperor Vextar faced the greatest crisis in Empire history. His military commanders were demanding revenge against humanity. His civilian advisors were counseling peace. The Emperor himself was trying to understand how his mighty empire had been humbled by a species that had only been in space for a few hundred years. They fight differently than anyone we have ever encountered, reported General Korthake, one of the Empire's most experienced commanders. They do not follow the traditional rules of warfare. They are unpredictable and adaptable. They are also effective, the Emperor said grimly. 47 worlds have declared independence since news of our defeat spread. Our borders are shrinking for the first time in centuries. The Emperor made a decision that shocked his entire government. He opened diplomatic channels with Earth, requesting a meeting to discuss peace terms. Ambassador Kate Phillips was chosen to lead the human delegation to the peace talks. She met with Korthak representatives on a neutral world, accompanied by military advisors and Dr. White. The Empire is prepared to recognize human sovereignty over all territories currently under human control, the Korthak ambassador announced. In exchange, we request that humans cease their military support of rebel worlds. Phillips smiled politely. I'm afraid that's not acceptable. Humanity will continue to offer protection to any species that requests it. However, we are willing to establish formal borders and trade agreements. The negotiations took weeks, but eventually an agreement was reached. The Korthak Empire would withdraw from 50 disputed worlds. Humanity would not attack Empire territory directly. Both sides would respect each other's borders and engage in peaceful trade. Dr. White established the Galactic Relations Institute, a school where humans and aliens could learn about each other's cultures. Students from dozens of species came to study human history, philosophy, and military tactics. What interests them most? Phillips asked during one of her visits to the Institute. Human stubbornness, White replied with a laugh. They can't understand how we refuse to give up even when the odds are against us. They want to learn how to be brave like that. Captain Miller's exploration fleet made first contact with 6 new species in their first year of operation. Each contact was peaceful, establishing trade relationships and cultural exchanges. The galaxy was becoming a more connected place. On Luna Station, Admiral Murphy watched the latest reports from across human space. The fleet had grown to over 300 ships. Human colonies were expanding into new systems. The asteroid belt had become the largest industrial complex in known space. Status report? Murphy asked his aide. All defensive positions remain strong. Trade routes are secure. No aggressive actions reported anywhere in human space or allied territories. Lieutenant Davis replied. Murphy nodded with satisfaction. The Korthak Empire had made the mistake of thinking humans would be easy to intimidate. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that had become protector of the weak and the defender of freedom. Years later, historians would mark the Battle of Sol as the moment when the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The age of conquest by intimidation was over. The age of cooperation and mutual defense had begun. And it had all started because the Empire brought warships to scare humans, not realizing that humans don't scare easily. They fight back, they protect others, and they never, ever give up. The galaxy was a safer place because of that one simple fact about human nature.